Alright guys, one thing else we're going to do today is we had a home maintenance kit from John Deere, model LG181. It's for the John Deere 318 with the Onan engine. Pretty sweet kit. Comes with your pre-filter, your air filter, oil filter, 2 spark plugs, a fuel filter, and your oil. I got this from got this online. It was on sale. I'll post a link below. And it's an easy access kit. You know, do it every fall or every spring, whichever one. Probably better to do it in the fall, as you have fresh oil sitting in your engine all winter long. And we're gonna go ahead and install this kit. First thing we're going to do is we will address the air cleaner assembly. As you can see, it is very rusty. There was a lot of rust at the base of the air cleaner. That could be ingested into the engine and could cause some cylinder scoring, and I believe may have actually already caused some damage to the system. When the intake is disassembled, it's always good to plug the air intake with a rag or a towel. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the air assembly in the evaporust. This will dissolve the rust on the air cleaner. Every few days I would go out and brush the assembly. That works the evaporust into it. Once it's all done, you can go ahead and rinse it and dry it dry it very well, so that way it doesn't re-rust. Next, I'll go scuff up the assembly with a Scotchbrite pad, and then clean it very generously with some mineral spirits. And I will use a silver and a black paint. Any kind of paint will work. And I got this particular paint at Tractor Supply. Depending on what paint you use, always follow the instructions on the can for coating and reapplication. On this particular paint, we had to reapply every coat after 24 hours. So we came back and did that to ensure, and did 2 light coats followed by 1 medium wet. Before the reassembly happens, it's a good point to go ahead and remove the fuel filter. I'm not showing it in this picture, but it's just below the air cleaner assembly. So at this point, you can detach the fuel filters, depending on what kind of clip it has. It could be a standard Phillips head, or it could be one of those pinch type clips that you require a pair of pliers to undo, and you can go ahead and pop that off and make sure the fuel direction is facing the right direction. And then once that's done, you can go ahead and reassemble the air cleaner assembly. In the maintenance kit, there were 2 new NGK spark plugs. The original ones were a little bit different. Overall, they look about the same. You'll need to gap these plugs to 25 thousandths. And as you can see here, this is the gapping tool I've used. And you can just take it along the thinnest part and move it until it stops, and that determines what your gap is. Alright, so first off, to remove the side panels here, you'll need to undo this bolt here, and that whole panel should come right off. Alright, with the sides removed, we can go ahead and remove the spark plugs. The regular spark plug wrench extension to make things a little easier. You always want to make sure that your plugs look pretty much the same before you put them in. Now these are different brands, so they're slightly different, but you can tell that they're the same length thread-wise to the tip. So we know we're good to go. So go ahead and insert that back in there. Always start threading it by hand before you put a wrench on it. Once you cross thread it, there's no going back. Now go ahead and put that boot back on. These boots and these plug wires have definitely seen better days and will need to be replaced. It's always good when you're doing this service to check your plugs to see what they look like. My plugs, as you can see, are a little white, which indicate it could be running a little bit hot. I've gone through it and cleaned out a lot of the vents. Just see if there's any other cooling issues as well. Go ahead and plug that back in. Alright guys, next we're going to move on to doing the oil change on the Onan of this John Deere 318. Oil spot is hard to access. Use whatever you got. I'm going to cut this in half and use it as a drain pan. Honestly, go check out your recycle. You can use anything from there. And we'll use it and we'll drain out the oil that way. So, alright, and using the knife, lower left is this bucket. We can use it to drain the fluid out. Alright, so on the passenger side of your 318, you're going to find here your filter. This is where your drain plug is. It's more of just a valve to open it up. And managed to squeeze our bucket in here and hope to catch as much of it as we can. You'll definitely want to put a rag or even a piece of cardboard underneath, because it's kind of a difficult spot to drain the oil out from. If ideally you can remove the deck, it's even better. I might actually trim this up a bit. Notch it out. Yeah, actually that works nicely. So what we got now is the smallest socket, which is 18 millimeters I could find to fit on it, and we cracked it open that way. Valve. We'll just wait for this to drain out. Now we can go ahead and use the same socket to tighten the valve back. I'm going to use a standard filter wrench, just because I don't want to have to buy another adapter. Go ahead and grab your new oil filter from John Deere. Model number is seen here, AM101207. I took mine and matched it up to the old one to ensure it was the same. The one that was on there was not a true John Deere one. I already use Turf Guard motor oil that comes in the kit. Now it's important too, as it says here, is to lubricate the gasket surface before installing the filter. So take your new oil, dip your finger in it, and just go ahead and run it on there. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clean inside of the housing here. As close as you can. Hand tight is usually sufficient. Alright, look at that. Perfect. Next we'll go ahead and fill it with oil, and we'll get those outside covers washed and reinstalled. Alright, next we'll go ahead and remove the cap. Grab our funnel, insert it in there, and we can go ahead and add the oil. The 318 calls for 1.75 quarts. We'll put in 1 quart and see where we stand, and then continue to add and fill and check until we're sure we have the appropriate amount of oil. Alright, so I ran it for a couple minutes. It's still cooling off, but you're going to want to go ahead and check the dipstick tube now. The problem is there was no oil in the filter now, so that's going to absorb a lot of oil. So I put 1.5 quarts in. I'm going to go ahead and check it. It still seems to be about right, but I'm going to let this sit for a little bit, and I'll come back to it and check again. Then when I run it, I'm going to go ahead and check it again after the first time to make sure it has the appropriate amount of oil.